I have a question for you. Do you remember the movie Enchanted?
I never saw it, but I know what you're talking about. Yeah, I think I do. Who's in it?
Everybody. Amy Adams, Patrick Dempsey, James Marsden, apparently Adina Menzel. I had not remembered it at the time, 2007. I was not particularly familiar with Adina Menzel because I had not seen the movie version of Rent or the other non-Broadway things she had been in. But apparently she was also in it.
Okay.
It's a decent movie. I mean, okay, it's a rom-com, and I hate rom-coms, and I didn't hate this movie.
Hmm.
It's kind of fun. It was kind of cute. It was a fun, different twist on it. Um, cool. Why are they making a sequel 15 years later? Who asked for that? And with all the principal cast on board.
Well, I mean, they just made a sequel to Hocus Pocus, which I just realized yesterday is another film I've never seen. The original Hocus
Which I've
Pocus. I thought
also
I
never
did.
seen, and I have
I
no
thought I
interest.
had.
Unlike Enchanted, people say Hocus Pocus was awesome. They should make a sequel. Wouldn't that be cool if they made a sequel to that? Like
Oh,
I've heard
so
people say that,
people do
and so
say
they
that. Okay.
did it. I have literally never heard anyone speak of Enchanted more than remember Enchanted, that one that's animated, and then they come in the real world. It's a rom com. They're like, oh yeah, that was pretty good, and then we all move on. Like there are lots of things that are getting late sequels that probably shouldn't. And I'm not arguing why Enchanted got a 15-year later sequel. I'm asking who the hell had the thought that started that process, because I've had no indication for the last 15 years that anybody was asking.
Okay.
I'm very confused. My sister's current theory is that Patrick Dempsey is just about out of career. And so maybe this was a chance to get into the zeitgeist again. I don't know. I find it very weird that they're all back for. I mean, James Marsden is good for anything. I mean, he does a great job, but he also has no discretion in picking his projects. He just you're doing a thing, okay, I'll be there. I feel like Amy Smart should be better than this. Dina Menzel's on the top of the world right now. I'm a little surprised she's going for it. Patrick Dempsey's the only one that I'm like, yeah, I get that. It's weird. See, it's because I'm wearing my Sith robes now because it's cold enough. So now I get really mean.
Oh,
I'm getting all dark side. Yeah, that was me. Me on the light side of things was what you've been dealing with for the last several months. So
I see.
strap in. Hello, everyone. Welcome, Magic Talking Hat Podcast, the only podcast in the world that makes and sells T-shirts unrelated to the podcast. Now you ask yourself, how is that the podcast does it? It's because William and I both do it. We don't talk about it, but we have a separate job. Silk screening T-shirts has nothing to do with the podcast, but because it's the two of us, we are the podcast. So it means the podcast does it. And I'm confident no other podcast does that. So there we are. I'm Tony.
And I'm William, and this is episode 604. Have you ever worked in uh, a place that makes t-shirts,
I
screen
have
printing
not.
t-shirts?
I've never
Yeah,
worked.
I've
What are you
actually
talking
done that kind of work.
about? I've never had a job.
It's actually kind of fun.
It looked interesting. I do
Well, I
I do
mean,
think there's a certain point in your early teens, or at least for me there was, where it suddenly like your brain was like, you could just put anything on a t-shirt if you wanted to. Like,
well, it's silk
wow.
screening is an interesting process, right? Because
Eh.
you get these screens that
Made of
let
silk.
through paint. And like, so let's say you've got a 3-color shirt, you have 3
I
screens
mean,
you
to
have to
be fair,
use.
most screens will let through paint. Have you ever tried to paint
But of
like
course,
a
each
screen
screen
door?
only lets through a certain color. And so, you put the screen
Mm.
down and you take this squeegee like thing and you go over it with the paint. And then the real fancy outfits had this carousel like thing with several screens on it. And
Yeah,
so,
yeah, yeah. I remember seeing those.
you'd put a shirt on this flat surface, and then you would just 3 or 4 people would be around this carousel, and then you'd pull down the spring-loaded arm, and then you do that color screen, and then you'd spin the carousel to the next spring-loaded arm, and that would be the next color, and then you could do 3 or 4 or 5 colors on your shirt, and then put it in a
Did you
dryer and start over.
did you sing a work song while you were all doing that?
I had a friend who
I
was an
don't believe it.
artist, and she would design shirts for the Indianola, Iowa used to have the balloon races, the nationals, balloon races in Indianola, Iowa. And so she used to design shirts for that and sell them in her own booth or whatever. And I helped her, produce some of those shirts after she designed them. And my brother Scott worked in a place. Scott designed a lot of screen printed shirts. One year when the Hawkeyes went to the Rose Bowl, he designed a Rose Bowl shirt / sweat, a design that went on mugs and sweatshirts and
Feathered
t-shirts.
rose.
I still sometimes, it's pretty rare, but if I'm in central Iowa, especially, I'll see someone wearing a design that he did for that place. So,
And be like, my brother made that. Buy me lunch. And they're like, get away from me, beggar.
those, those designs that have a state, and then they have these little cartoon representations of things in the state, and it's located on the map in approximately the place that thing's supposed to be. Or do you know at all what I'm talking about?
I think that's some middle of the country bullshit that I did not grow up with.
Like it'll be the state of Minnesota and
Yeah, no, the
around,
concept works for me, but we were always
okay.
just like, we have mountains and oceans and shit, and you can just see those. I mean, they're
Anyway,
right there.
he made one of those. So it's the state, and then there's like a cartoon representation of the capital, kind of where Des Moines is supposed to be, and there's a cartoon representation of a John Deere tractor where Waterloo is supposed to be, and all that stuff. And where Mount Pleasant is supposed to be on the map, there's this sort of cartoon representation of old threshers, because they have old threshers in Mount Pleasant. And there's a little guy standing there looking at an old steam thresher and obviously enjoying his time in Mount Pleasant. And it's a little cartoon version of my dad. I always, whenever I see someone wearing a shirt like that, I always know it's Scott's design, because if I
You're
look
like,
down
that's
where
my dad.
I look down where Mount Pleasant is supposed to be, my dad's there.
And then the police are like, Mr. Wright, we talked to you before about accosting strangers claiming your dad is on their t-shirt.
It's
You
pretty
need to
good.
stop. It's like a Magic Eye thing. I have never been to Indianola, Iowa. But I love Indianola, Iowa for one and one reason only.
What's that?
It's called Indianola. It sounds like a really tone deaf 1950s Native American theme park.
Well,
come on, ride the rides and see the exhibits at Indianola.
It's the county seat of Warren County, which is the county west of Marion County where I grew up. Indianola
is an actual Native American term, isn't it? Isn't there a tribe called the Indianola or something? Or is it actually a 1950s tone deaf Native American theme park?
No. It is the place that has an A&W root beer restaurant to this day. And it was the main, and I mean, there were lots of A&W restaurants when I was growing up.
Yes.
This is the only one that's still there, but it's the one we went to the most often, because we usually went to A&W when we were on our way to my mom's folks' place, which was Greenfield, Iowa, in Adair County. You get there, you hopped on 92 and you went through Indianola, you went through Winterset in Madison County, and you eventually got
Okay.
to Greenfield.
The fact that you know the origins of every name of everything in Iowa and you're not telling me why Indianola is called Indianola is making me nervous.
To my knowledge, the Ola is something that you put at the end of a lot of different things, and someone just put that at the end of Indian. I mean, what's not the name of anything.
Just as bad as I think it is. Oh wow.
In a way, yeah, someone just made this name up.
Wow.
To my knowledge, but sometimes you read about the origin of something and then later you find out, oh, that's not how it was or whatever.
And then this town over here is called Gypsy Orama.
So the information I got, I didn't go verify anything. That's just the last
hilarious.
I knew. Yep.
I always assumed that there was something not backward and racist about the name, but no.
Well, and I think in their high school mascot is like, Indians or Braves or Chiefs or something. I don't even remember now.
Something accidentally was telling me about pro football on TV. I don't remember why, and I didn't care. And two people were going to play, and one was the Bears, because the Chicago Bears, which I know that, and the other was the Commanders. And I don't know a team called that, and they didn't specify where they were from. So I'm like, okay, is there a football team other than Washington that had a kind of racist name that recently changed it to the Commanders? Or is it just another expansion team? I don't know. NFL's terrible.
You're asking the wrong guy.
Don't give it your attention or money.
The Cleveland Indians changed their name to the Guardians, I want to say. Was it Guardians? Did you hear that? The Cleveland Indians changed their name.
Yeah, but that's not football.
The Guardian. No.
I knew about that. Yeah.
Okay.
If you're just joining us, we have a hat. It's magical in that it has its own email address, themagicaltalkinghat@gmail.com. And all our good-hearted listeners, and sometimes just random people from the world who typed an email address wrong, right into that email address, themagicaltalkinghat@gmail.com. Do not stand on the computer. Thank you, Ezzy. With whatever the crap they want to email us about, and then the hat magically forwards us that email, and then we talk about it till we're bored when we feel like it.
I do know who the Commanders are. I forgot. The Washington Redskins changed their name to the Commanders.
The Redskins actually did change their name.
I forgot that. I do remember when that
happened. When I was still paying attention to the public world, they were still dragging their heels on that one. All right, then. Good on them, I guess, eventually.
Yeah, I don't know why some of those things took so long. You can find some Native American activists who don't like all that stuff, but they're like, we've got bigger fish to fry. We got bigger problems than it's what's called. But you pretty much can't find a Native American. Maybe there are some Native Americans who think, oh, this celebrates our culture or whatever, but most are like, no, this is clearly bad. This is clearly wrong.
In general, indigenous populations as mascots is not a great thing. But even within that front, Redskins.
Well, yeah, you're right. That's particularly.
What would have been awesome is if they had gone the other way and they're like, we're not going to change the name. We are going to change the artwork to reflect that we are, in fact, the Washington Redskin Potatoes. From now on. I think that would have been cool. I would have supported that team.
Potatoes.
Redskin Potatoes.
Yeah.
Ezzy. God. Okay, my cat is losing her mind. She's on a major hunger strike squirrely trip. She's a bad way right now. We're working on her, but Soon she'll be happy again. We turned on the furnace yesterday.
Mm.
Might have been too early on account of since we did that, it has yet to kick on because the thermostat has never gotten cold enough.
Mm.
I thought it would last night because it's programmable and we set it to colder at night, but it never quite got there. So, but it should soon. The outside temperatures are quite cold.
Yeah, and I'm glad of that because we have a day that it's 7 a.m. it's 35 degrees, and 7 p.m. it's 75 degrees. No, a 40-degree spread like that, it makes me
not a fun time.
It actually makes me sick. I mean, I get a headache. I can't deal with that. So yeah, I hope we're done with that.
Well, and the cold weather's finally getting rid of my last of the fall season allergies, which have been really bad this year. Sure. So it's been 2 weeks since we spoke. What you been up to, punk?
Well, probably the biggest thing that happened the last 2 weeks is Abby and I went to and had supper with Dave Avid and his wife. That was a really good time.
I didn't know about that.
Yep, they're very, very.
You didn't send me pictures of them in costumes.
They're wonderful people and great to spend time with. And we had a fantastic time. Other than that, I've been. Did I tell you that I'm taking abnormal psych this quarter?
No.
I mean, that's not what the class is called. The class is called psychopathology or something, but the text is called abnormal psychology. It's abnormal psych. That's what I'm taking.
All right. So one of two things will happen this semester. One, it'll be kind of a load off for you because it'll be less directly like related to the world you're in and stuff, and it'll be less common things. That's ideally. The second is you start diagnosing me with a lot of shit, and we have to have some serious talks, which don't worry, we will record for the public because that's our bread and butter.
But I mean, I do. It is a topic that I'm interested in, obviously, and have been, my whole life really. And so it's a really fascinating class so far. I worry that, it is a quarter, and we basically take a semester class and smash it in that quarter. And I do worry that I won't have enough time to really, spend time with the material like I'd like. But it's mostly, even though, it's called abnormal psychology and, that's what it is. That's what the class is. And the text.
But it's not called that. We established it's not called that.
It's
just
really,
a minute ago.
It's really dealing with
you made a point of saying that's not what it's called.
Yes, I know. Because that's
and then you just said that's what it's called.
That's what the text is called.
Oh.
The class is called psychopathology, I think. Yeah, I don't know why they don't just call well, it doesn't matter. But
I'm surprised you have one text.
What the class is I think when people hear that, they're going to think, oh, so you're going to talk about, serious psychopathologies or whatever. But really, we're talking about everything that's in the DSM. Anything that you can diagnose is what we're covering. So there's, we're not going to talk about, say, schizophrenia or borderline personality disorder or whatever the whole time. We'll be talking about, everything that's in the DSM. And I'm very much interested in that because when you work in mental health, you deal with a lot of different things. You're not always dealing with someone who has a mental illness or a diagnosable illness, right? But that's what you think about. That's what most people think about when they think about the field. It's kind of like physicians. When some people think of a physician, they often think of them, someone comes to them and they have some kind of ailment and they diagnose it and they treat it. They don't think about just someone coming in for a checkup and they get a clean bill of health and go home. I mean, that everyone knows that happens, but that's not, people don't think of doctors as existing for that purpose. They think of doctors existing to diagnose illness and treat illness. And in mental health, it's similar. You're almost never going to see a person that has a serious mental illness, but that's why people think mental health professionals exist. So when you're studying
diagnosable, also, you'll see it in every TV show you watch. They're fucking
Right.
everywhere.
Yeah,
on
that's
TV.
right. So, well, like when you're a kid and you imagine you're going to be a police officer, you don't imagine doing paperwork, or if you're going to be a doctor, you don't imagine giving a little kid a sucker and telling him to go. I mean, you're in the emergency room, or you're performing surgery or whatever. So, when you're studying these things, you feel like you're kind of you're you're reading books and you're talking about cases that are like, yeah, this is what people and even we who are getting into the profession think of as being a mental health professional. These are the kinds of things you think of doing, even though you're not going to do that most of the time, and you're going to be perfectly fine doing those other things. but this
Now
is what
I'm
you think
just
of doing.
picturing like toddler aged William being like, I'm gonna be a mental health professional and I'm gonna fix all the schizophrenics.
I mean, I did talk about being a physician, but not a psychiatrist.
I'll
But
be
I did.
like, poor Bartholomew, you don't have to kill. You just need a hug. And then I'm gonna hug him and check him for covert weapons.
I mean, you're
Because
joking, but
I don't trust the security in my clinic.
you're joking, but people probably did have conversations with me almost like that when I was a kid. I was a weird
As per
kid.
usual,
I was a
I
weird
am
kid.
joking about you, William, while telling the honest truth.
I was
I
a
went
weird
to
kid.
school for
So weird.
this many years so that I could help you.
Oh man. Anyway, so it's
But you
fun.
have to give me the knife.
It's fun to it's it's not a fun topic because you're talking about mental illness, but
Sure
it's
it is.
fun.
Again, most hit TV shows are about it. People love this shit.
But it is fun to learn about these things and to to learn things that you didn't know, which is just about everything. I mean, you people with even diagnosable mental illness, much less severe mental illness, most people don't run into these people every day. So there's a lot of ignorance about it, including
Oh yeah.
myself. So I'm just thrilled to be able to learn more things about it, more things about the history of treating these things, to learn about techniques that really work. Because that's another thing is you think, man, how do you when the more you learn about, say, borderline personality disorder and how terribly oppressive it is for the person who has it and for anyone who knows the person who has it, you immediately you just keep thinking while you're learning about it, how do you even treat this? Because a lot of problems with personality disorders in general, it really prevents a person even from forming what they talk about in the profession is the therapeutic alliance, that even research has shown over and over again is so critical to having a therapeutic uh, effort even work. If the two people, if the therapist and the client can't form some kind of basic human bond and a collaborative relationship, and it's not gonna nothing's gonna happen here. There's no way the person's gonna make any progress. So if a person has a personality disorder or an antisocial disorder, like that's like the very thing, that's like the very worst thing to have if you're going if what your hope is to get help from another human being. And so, but there are things that have worked. There are approaches that people have come up with that can work, and it's really exciting to learn about those things. I don't know if I mean my career's probably going to be very short. I'm not going to be working till I'm 100. So
Because you're gonna piss somebody off who has the wrong diagnosis.
I mean, if I work for 20 years as a therapist, I'll be 80 years old or whatever. But it might be in my career I'll run into someone who has one of these types of disorders, and I'll need to figure out how I can help them, and I hope I can, because that's the whole point. But it's an interesting class, and I really do like it. I just hope that it's not accelerated so much like some of the other classes have been, that I can't really spend the time with the subject matter that I'd like to. But it's a fun it's a fun journey in a lot of ways anyway. and I'm glad to be on
I'm
it.
sure it's very interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. So how was your 2 weeks?
Well, I got sent pictures of a dragon. Sorry, one picture of a dragon and a video of a dragon.
That's a pretty cool video, though, right?
It was pretty cute. I had showed Trish the picture immediately, and then I forgot about the video, and I showed that to her last night at dinner. Somebody went to the Ren Fair in Amana.
Yeah, I didn't go,
Oh, those pictures aren't from you. Okay.
but Abby went.
Okay.
But I had homework to do, so I stayed home.
But young
Delmer.
Delmer was dressed as a dragon, and it was
Delmer
pretty
the dragon, yep.
adorable.
And he liked it. Like, apparently he went up to people sometimes, "Arr," and he was like,
Nice.
he was really getting into it. And in that video, I thought it was funny because he's walking and he's kind of squeaking and stuff. But then there's this moment where his attention gets distracted, and he's like, he kind of does that deal. He stops.
He seems very energetic. I think he probably had a real fun time.
He is, and he's energetic and he's happy. I mean, that's the way he is around the house too. When they come here to visit, he's just very happy, very running around, just getting into stuff. I mean, he's real healthy.
And then
happy
as soon
kid.
as they leave, he's like, I need a fucking cigarette. He's out underneath the porch, just like, Mom, Dad, just give me a sec. Okay. Damn, They were a lot today.
This will be, so he was born in April, and his first Halloween was last year. He was still pretty little, but now he can walk and he can put on a costume, and he likes to do that. So this will be the first Halloween where he might actually enjoy
probably at the age where he knows that he loves candy more than anything else in the world.
I don't know. I mean, he's very he's very interested in everything. No, he's very interested in everything around him. Like, I don't know how focused he'll be able to be on, oh, here's a house. I go up and I get candy and I go to the next house. I don't know how plugged into that process he's going to be able to get, because if he sees
oh no, later years will be where that really gets out. But at this point, he'll just know that eventually he's got some candy, and candy's awesome.
And I think they're going to come. I don't think they're going to trick or treat in their neighborhood. I think they want to come to our neighborhood and trick or treat, which is like, that's fine. I mean,
it is fancy.
Yeah, the kids used to trick or treat here. And the houses around here decorate all right, and they put their lights on and stuff. So I think it'll be okay if he trick or treats in this neighborhood. So yeah, I
wouldn't imagine. Why not? Yeah.
We're up for that. So I think, yeah. And we haven't had, like, when the kids got old enough, obvious, and they weren't trick or treating, maybe they're going to Halloween parties instead or whatever. We didn't really like hand out candy or anything ourselves.
Yeah, we haven't done it in years.
So this is going to be the first time the whole trick or treating thing has been a part of our routine here at the house, and that'll be fun. That'll be good to get kind of back into that kind of thing for a while.
You should dress him up as Freddy Krueger.
Well, I think he's going to do the dragon thing again, but
no. We've seen him in that. Come on, come on, little, not quite 2-year-old wearing the sweater and the fedora and the knife gloves and is all burned up. Like, that'd be so adorable. I would love that.
Let it now. Okay.
That would be super cute.
Mm-hmm.
And he could still make the same noises. Rah! That'd work fine. He's probably not old enough to know to call people bitch, so we'll start with just rah.
Oh, okay.
That'll be good.
Okay, aside from stuff sent by me to you, what else happened for you in these last 2 weeks?
Went up to Wisconsin to a weird cabin.
That was we didn't talk about that on the podcast yet?
I don't think so. I think that's why we had to record 2 of them.
Oh.
No, wait, we did talk about it. We came back, we had lunch, and then we talked about it.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Because we talked about it at lunch for sure.
We're recording 2 next week. That's right. I don't know what's going on. I don't know. Nothing happened to me this week is what that means.
Nothing?
I mean, I picked up my wife and brought her home, and I went and saw my niece and Meet Me in St. Louis.
Mm-hmm.
Don't understand why that play exists either. It's a turn of the century Midwestern slice of life musical. Like it's just sort of a year in the life of this family. There's not an overarching plot. Just shit happens to this family sometimes. Different shit.
Where do they live? In Missouri somewhere?
St. Louis.
Oh, I thought they were going to St. Louis.
No, no. They are constantly singing about how other people should be meeting them there.
Oh,
There is a background thing of the World's Fair is gonna happen there.
mm.
The 1904 World's Fair. I don't know.
I don't remember which World's Fair was there.
But that's a big thing. And the very last shot, we're actually at the World's Fair, which weirdly, for a children's amateur production company in a black box theater space, is really hard to convey. So they just wheeled in an empty fountain and put it in the middle, and that was sort of it. But it cracked me up though, because at the end they all wear white for this thing, and they're just running around and nobody's explained anything. And I just lean over to Trish. I'm like, did they die? Is this them all in heaven now? Because even like side characters are just wearing their same outfit but a white version. It's like, what? Are they're all dead, right? There was a horrible trolley accident. Because this is the reason. Like, it's not, nothing happened in the play, so I'm not that into it. But it does have two songs that we all know from this play.
Oh, really?
Yes, Clang 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 went the trolley.
Oh, I mean, I
'Cause
don't know that song,
weirdly,
but
St. Louis trolley
I
was a part of it.
I only know that from SCTV or something because like some sketch comedy.
I mean, I think I got it originally from The Simpsons. I've known other versions since then, but they made reference to it on The Simpsons one time. But the other one, I'm pretty sure you will know. A little song called "Have Yourself a Merry Little Christmas."
Oh, that's from that.
Because one of the episodes where shit happens unrelated to other shit generally is at Christmas. And one of the children is sad, so another of the children sings the song.
And that's where it's originally from?
I mean, I can't swear to it, but I would be shocked. Musicals back in this day, as far as I know, didn't like co-opt existing songs.
I guess not.
Most of the time when you hear one of these old songs that everybody knows in an old musical, that's because that's where it came from.
I like that song.
Kind of like how I'm Dreaming of a White Christmas came from Holiday Inn and not from White Christmas, which happened later and is essentially the same plot. Trish and I spent years really confused with each other because we had both grown up with a holiday movie where Bing Crosby and a friend of his take over an old resort and only do things during the holidays. And I was like, yeah, it's called White Christmas. And she's like, no, it's called Holiday Inn. And guess what? We're both right. And it's not different titles of the same movie. It's two different fucking movies where Bing fucking Crosby and some friend of his opt to purchase and run a resort hotel out in the mountains somewhere, but only do it on the holidays. And they both have the song White Christmas.
I think that trolley
Weird.
song was something that I think Martin Short had a lounge singer character that he would do for sketches and stuff. And he'd sing songs, and then one of the songs that he'd break into was that one once in a while.
Clang, clang, clang went the trolley. Ring, ring, ring went the bell. Or ding, ding, ding went the bell, I think. Zing, zing, zing went my heartstrings. From the moment I saw him, I fell.
Yeah.
It's a silly song. Anyway, so we went and saw that. And yeah, brought my wife back here, which is good. Went to the dietitian, nothing exciting. I lost a couple pounds, but that's about it because Didn't have a great September, and I've had a really bad October. I've only just got back into things there. Um, I don't remember if I've had another therapy appointment since I talked to you, but there's nothing that exciting there. Uh, I'm sure I saw some other movies and things. We're finishing up season 2 of Woke. We finished up season 2 of Hacks, which is very, very good. Um, saw a movie last night. We're finally starting to get into the spooky movie stuff a little bit. I am kind of unimpressed with what the various streaming services are putting out this year. I'm not seeing a lot that I'm like, oh, I want to see that. I don't know why. But we finally saw a movie that has been on my radar forever because everybody said it was really kind of amazing and original for a horror film, and it made a big splash. It Follows.
Yeah, I don't remember if we've seen that or not. We were gonna see it. Is it any good?
I've always been a little hesitant on it because at its base, it's a movie about a monster that gets passed via sex. And if it's passed to you, this monster that nobody else can see that can take on any disguise it wants just walks to you. And if it catches you, it's gonna have sex with you to death.
What?
And if you, yes, yes,
I guess I
yes,
didn't. I have not seen this.
yeah. And you can only get rid of it essentially by passing it on to somebody else by having sex with them. But then if they kill that person, they come back to working on you again. It's whoever's last alive on it. And the only way around it is it only walks. It doesn't run. So you have time sometimes. You can like drive away and you'll know it'll take them hours to catch up because they're walking. But that premise could be very rapey by its, actual definitive characteristics.
Right.
So was nervous about that. And
Okay.
so I've
Sure.
never really, I've always been like, maybe people talk well about it. Maybe I should. And I should say on that front, it's not a big one. The only reason we know that's how they die is we do see it once. It is not particularly graphic, but we see enough to understand that's what happens. My wife claimed she suspected that was what would happen because the very first like pre credits victim whose name we never know. You know how so many horror movies have a victim in the beginning that dies just to be scared and we never know who they are. In this one, my wife claimed she could tell the method of death based on the disposition of the corpse. And I'm now kind of scared of my wife because I have no idea how the thing we saw implies rough sex. So I don't know what that's about. But no, by and large, we don't have that, which I was very glad about. I thought we might. I'm like, it's supernatural. It's not actually a person. Maybe it won't. And everybody, I figured if it was really rapey, people would have mentioned that. And so it's not. I can say that. I don't know, man. Like it, it's a novel monster idea, and I want to give it points for that. It's clearly a metaphor, also, but I'm not sure what for because AIDS isn't a thing like it. Like if this movie had been made in the 90s, I would know what this was a metaphor for. But nowadays, I'm not sure. And I think it's set in the present day. The whole movie looks very late 20th century in its look, but one of the characters appears to have a compact that's like a seashell that has two screens on it and is essentially a Kindle.
Hmm.
And if it weren't for that, I would think it might be set in the 90s. Like everything
Really
else about it has, but
interesting.
she has that. And that's not a plot point. She just has that. So I'm like, I think it's roughly present day. So then I'm confused about what the metaphor is supposed to be. And also, it's just a lot of aspects of the production are bizarre. The editing is really strange. The music sounds like MIDI chip video game music in a lot of places. It's a lot of the dialogue is just weird, and I wasn't ever lost in the plot, but there are weird edits and weird lines, and I'm like, that doesn't. I'm not confused now, but that just doesn't feel right as a movie. It's shot very interestingly, but I'm not sure it's shot intelligently. The production of it is just very strange.
So help me figure this out here. So I know that in what's often termed modern horror, and modern horror usually includes like Stephen King and the original slasher movies and stuff. It's like, this is what modern horror is like. There's this theme. I guess, I mean, I haven't really studied it, but I've heard people talk about this. There's a theme of people who have sex being like targets of the
Oh yeah.
evil, which isn't that suggesting there's something wrong with having sex, or something like they're being punished for their sexuality or something?
Traditionally, it's an outgrowth of the thing, because at this point, it's like in a modern kids movie and somebody does a Peter Lorre impression and kids think it's funny because it's a funny voice, and nobody who's watching the movie knows who the fuck Peter Lorre was. So originally we wanted to contain moral overtones. I think it was probably an outgrowth. A lot of what I think of as modern horror especially in the slasher genre, bears some DNA from old propaganda exploitation films that were really sensationalist, but were supposed to be warnings about, doing weed or being a single mom or whatever else.
Gotcha,
And so there was this moral component, and generally speaking, in a lot of early slashers and a lot of the archetypical and seminal slashers, whoever was doing the bad stuff got killed. And one of the bad things was premarital sex.
But it could be drugs, or it could be
drugs is another one. And frequently they'd go together. You need a few, so you're like, you're not going to feel bad when this person dies.
Playing D&D.
Because that's not what a lot of those are about. A lot of those are not about actual sympathy. And even nowadays you get that. If you see a slasher movie, most of the time they spend the first act just making you think all of these usually teens are shitty.
So you won't care that they get killed.
And will in fact be into it, because a modern slasher, that's sort of the main reason you watch it, is for the creative kills and whatever.
Okay, so are you saying that when these slashers started and it was the kids that were having drugs or taking drugs or having sex, that was, you were supposed to, as a viewer, not like them or like be alienated from them, so when they died it didn't affect you? Or
that is my belief, and it's because a lot of these early ones, well, and it's still true today, you're not rooting for the victims, you're rooting for the killer. People don't go see Friday the 13th movie because they're into camp counselors.
Okay, I know, but for that to work, let's speak in terms of back when this was just starting. The general audience had to be pretty judgy about certain types of behavior, like drugs and sex, right?
Or the film industry had to believe that people were pretty judgy about these behaviors.
Okay. Now, so here's this movie, which is kind of playing to the same theme. Do you think the filmmakers think that people are going to be judgy towards these sexually active young people?
No, I don't think that's what's going on at all here.
Oh, okay. All right. So how does this persist? How does this keep going, where people who are sexually active are punished by the monsters in horror movies? What's behind that? I don't understand.
I think it's just a grandfather clause at this point, because that's how it's always been. And a lot of modern horror movies are just homages to earlier ones. But I don't want to spoil a lot for this. It's on Netflix. It's not a long movie, but I will say it doesn't have a real high body count.
Mm.
Um, and nobody really gets punished for having sex. I mean, in a very strict sense, based on the way the mythology works, some people do, but like, I anticipated this film would be, uh, because we have a POV character, we have a character that it's that character's story,
Okay.
and I assumed this person would get the curse and then would try to pass it on, but would pass it on to idiots who would get themselves killed very quickly, and then we'd come up with another resolution. That's not what happens.
Mm.
There's not a ton of sex in this movie, and most of the sex is a deliberate, informed choice.
Mm.
Because, and again, that's why this is clearly a metaphor for something, because the monster is very slow, and that's a thing. Like, you can go on a real long time as long as you're keeping an eye out, and then you drive or fly across the country. I mean, it'll take weeks to get there. And so there are ways around it. So it's something you could live with. And that's part of a component, because our protagonist doesn't want to just give it to someone else. Like, that would be shitty. That's what happened to them. And they don't want to be shitty like that to someone. Uh I don't know though. It's weird. If anybody else saw this movie and like has thoughts on it, please let me know, because it was a pretty big deal when it came out, and I finally watched it, and I don't understand. So help me understand.
It's just always confused me how modern horror seems to think that, you know, sex is bad, which, I mean, there are prevailing attitudes out there like that, but modern horror thinks this? That doesn't
Most
seem.
most modern horror and modern sci-fi is built on tropes. And horror has built into it tropes about that. I mean, hell, remember Cabin in the Woods? Like, certain people were required to have sex. Certain people were required to show nudity so that the ritual could work. Like, that was literally part of the scientific process they were putting together. These are built as. My favorite thing in the world nowadays is when there's a sci-fi term of like technology or something that I've known for a while, but I'm like, what does that actually mean? And I look it up, and it's something that like Asimov or Le Guin coined, and everybody since then is just like, yeah, that's just a sci-fi thing.
Yeah.
The more recent one I got was an Ansible, which is a type of faster than light communication that I think Ursula Le Guin created. It's shown up in a ton of space books I've read since then from all sorts of authors, but it has no basis. I mean, in theory, there's some theoretical science there, but like, nobody's ever made one. It's not a real thing, but it's so buried in the vernacular now that other sci-fis just use it and don't explain what it is. They just have it. But yeah, I think they're all very based in tropes, and so that's part of it. That's the guy I watch who does the horror movie, or not horror movies, but just long running movie recaps on several of the horror ones right around the third movie. He's like, yeah, and then we have this scene which is just for the gratuitous nudity, because when you're making a long running horror series that's R-rated, you suddenly remember around the third movie, oh yeah, we can stick boobs in this, and so then you do.
But I mean, clearly you're right. I mean, another thing that you get
Always.
a lot in modern horror is a lot of strong religious themes, which many of these filmmakers aren't religious or strongly religious. It's just a thing that you put in your horror movie, you know. Like
Well,
they're not
and
Catholics or believe in Catholicism or anything. It's just that's what you
putting
put in there.
Judeo-Christian mythology into your horror movie is one of only two ways you're allowed to work with Judeo-Christian mythology.
Hmm.
The other being, I guess, a Christian magical realism or fantasy film, but a pure flicks film is the only other way you can do it. It has to be a Christian film. Otherwise, other movies can play with uh mythologies from other things. You can do fantasies and other things involving Greeks and whatever, Marvel can fuck with this. But if you want to work on Judeo-Christian stuff, you need to be a horror movie. Also, Judeo-Christian mythos is some of the most cut and dried with our modern sensibilities of good and evil. So it lends itself very well to horror.
Sure. Sure.
The only way to stick other mythologies in there is to usually horribly misinterpret them. So, like, hey, we picked this god from a different religion. They're a god of a bunch of things, but death is one of their aspects. So we're going to decide they're evil.
Yeah, right. Yep. That's
Um,
interesting.
all right. Bad news. We used up all our time.
We did?
Maybe not quite, but I'm sick of your face. Yeah, okay, we'll read one question. We almost did. I think we only got a few minutes left from when we
Oh,
started. I don't know. I ran over a lot, but we did use up a lot of time. All right. Let's see what we have. Oh, this one is from Azure Talon. The subject on this is Narf, Fjord. Narf, famously what Pinky from Pinky and the Brain exclaims on a regular basis. And a fjord is a particular type of coastal geographic feature.
yes.
I
didn't
don't know
know it.
why he put those in there.
I didn't know Narf.
Yeah,
I had
Pinky
never
from
heard.
Pinky and the Brain. I'll go, Narf. That's like his little sound he makes. I combined them and was seeing Fnord, which is an old Discordian thing that was heavy in the Illuminatus trilogy years ago, but nope. All right, so wow, there's a bunch of crap here. All right, so the Hat has noticed recently that people have gone back to several questions in a single email. This is not super great bookkeeping for us over here, because generally speaking, the way we know if we've read an email is if it's listed as read. So, I guess this is all one question, but it's a lot. All right. So here it goes. Facebook games in the style that became At Midnight's hashtag wars. For those of you who don't remember, which is everybody except me, At Midnight was a game show on Comedy Central that happened at midnight, and it was hosted by Chris Hardwick, and it had a lot of comedians on it, and it was the closest thing to like a British panel show that we've really had, where there were points, but it was mostly just about fucking around and saying funny things. And in order to get brand synergy, they would have hashtag wars, which is they would basically come up with a funny sort of word puzzle thing that then everybody would tweet about, and the best ones they would show on the show later. So here are some that Azure Talent has suggested for us. Describe a fart using a movie title. I don't find that interesting because that's just the same as describing a poop using a movie title, which is already the best game in the world. So why would you downgrade it? Describe your bedroom activity as a song. Little root one there, but all right. And depluralize a film. I'm more interested in that. What's some of the best versions and best answers you have heard or can think of? Um,
I'm going to be worthless on this right now. I'll probably think of a whole bunch of stuff later, but
trying to think of a good depluralized film. I mean, I've got a few good man, but that's not uh cheaper by the individual, and its sequel Cheaper by the Individual too. Come on, I thought that was good.
I mean, yeah, I guess, sure.
You're a monster.
I know I'm a tough audience, and I'm not gonna
I
have any ideas
the
myself.
sexual style as a song. I'm like, this is just the fortune ending all fortune cookies in bed. I mean, I can pick a song that sounds good. Some Enchanted Evening. There's a good one. Like, there you go. I want to rock and roll. A lot of songs are already about sex, so Stay the Night. Uh, Will You Still Love Me for the Rest of My Life? Because I'm very is a 38 special song from the 80s. I'm very needy in the bedroom. I need protestations of love before even foreplay can happen. I'm like, yeah, I really need to know you're in this for the long haul. I don't know, Talon. I don't what are yours? You got okay. You all go to the blog, make us look bad, please. Um or don't, in which case you'll make Talon look bad. Because either we suck at this or this email sucked. And
I
if
don't
you
know.
give a lot of them, that means we suck at this. If
I think he
nobody
just
says anything, it means you're saying it means you, the listener, are saying Talon sucks.
I think he's just catching us in the wrong mood. I mean, that's the thing about this podcast is, we don't really show up ready to make the podcast a particular thing. I mean, it's whatever mood we're in, if we're tired, if we're sick, if I've been working on homework and I'm completely fried and there's no way I'm going to be able to make anything up. I mean, that's just how the podcast goes. We don't.
Describe a fart using a movie title. The Best Exotic Marigold Hotel. That's what my farts are like. Describe your bedroom activity as a song. Clang, clang, clang went the trolley. Depluralize a film. Jaw.
That's a pretty good one.
The sad thing is I was gonna do depluralize Jaws 2 and just call it Jaws. And then I was like, wait, there's an S on that. I can just call it Jaw.
Penny from Heaven. That's mine.
Which is that your fart or is that your sex?
Oh
wait, that's your depluralized film. Okay.
How about both? How about all three? That's my answer for all three.
Okay, now we're gonna do it using only Harmony Korine movie titles. That'll get rough real fast. I feel like there's a lot of potential in depluralize a film, but damned if I can come up with it. One Angry Man.
Star War.
Just
one.
That came up in something recently, and they were talking about a scene from New Hope, and they're like, when they're losing the Star War. Good fellow.
The Dirty Single.
Wait. Oh, okay. Took me a minute to remember what the freaking movie was. The original movie. The One Samurai. Why'd you even say one? Can't you just say The Samurai?
Can't you just say The Samurai?
Raider of the Lost Ark.
I mean, it actually makes more sense that
way. Breakfast at Tiffany. That sounds weird.
That's not
Doesn't sound right.
plural though. Isn't that possessive? Or no, that's just Tiffany's is just the name, right?
I don't know. That's why it makes no sense. What about the great 80s black comedy that spawned a Broadway musical, Heather?
Yeah, that's
Um,
good. Mm,
uh, Marvel's Avenger Assemble. Uh, the Jungle Page. All right, that was not. This is not a
Snow
good podcast.
Snow White and the Dwarf.
Okay, especially because
I
now it sounds like an 80s police procedural, like or cozy mystery series. There,
oh, we
they don't get
should
along,
pay.
but they make a great crime-solving team. Snow White and the Dwarf.
We should somehow. This reminds me. We should say something about Angela Lansbury, who passed since we
She
podcasted
did.
last.
She did.
R.I.P. to her.
Loved her. Loved everything she's ever done, except that weird senior fitness video, which is odd. Look it up if you haven't seen it. It's a very interesting time. She was old as snot, so I mean,
Yeah,
I get it.
96, I think.
But tremendous, tremendous work. We were just talking about one of her. Oh, HBO Max has Gaslight,
Oh, it
the
does.
original film on it, and I think that's her. I think it's a very young her.
Hmm.
Um,
She was an incredible talent for sure.
so we're depluralizing. Do we have to? Is it now Pride or Prejudice?
Good. Now you're really now the
Uh,
noggin's working now. Yeah.
you, me, or Dupree, but you can't have more than one. And
Good.
Landberry, bed
Fantastic.
knob and broomstick. Um,
Or bedknob or you've got to depluralize it entirely.
there's also several movies that are now just called Ocean
Yeah.
and are probably really bad heist movies.
Maybe the first one's okay.
Now, do you mean the original first one with Frank Sinatra and no one else, or the original remake with George Clooney and no one else?
It was in that one.
What?
And Brad Pitt
No,
was in that.
Brad Pitt was in Ocean's 11. Only George Clooney is in Ocean.
Okay.
This is what I'm saying. There is no heist team if you depluralize it. It's just one dude.
You're right.
And 12 and 13 and 8. Although in that case, Ocean refers to Ocean's sister, also Ocean.
Well, a movie that wouldn't work just singular would be Gremlin. You've lost it. If it's just Gremlin.
Also the weird coming of age Stephen King one, Stand by Yourself. All right. See, I thought there was untapped potential in this. You just got to get in the right headspace. This is one
yeah,
real sad kid standing around being like, "You want to see a dead body? Yeah, okay. Do you know where one is? I do. Why didn't you mention this earlier?"
It sounds like a biography about me. Haven't I told you someone, I don't remember who it was, but I think I was at a reunion or something. Someone said, Bill, my earliest remembrance of you was in elementary school. I'd be playing, with all the other kids, and then I'd sort of look up, look around, or whatever, and there you were, just sort of walking around the perimeter of the playground all by yourself. Yeah, I remember that.
Crop dusting because your farts could best be described as the Phantom Menace.
I remember that. That is what I did at recess. But I mean, I wasn't I wasn't like depressed or sad or anything. That's just what I wanted to do. Didn't bother me. But yeah, that's what I did. I was a weird kid.
So then the movie becomes Little Woman. That doesn't seem
Nope.
right.
No, it doesn't seem right. Sometimes the plural really matters.
I do like that we can just take off the "and" for everything. So it's like Harry Potter and absolutely nothing else. I think that may be straining the levels of the
No, I
game,
like your
but-
I like your innovative. I mean, you're really stretching the instructions here in a way that I think's very humorous. It's better than just taking the S off of things.
As we've established, that can be fucked up sometimes. It's not called Mary Poppin.
Uh,
And
stand by
also
yourself,
then
that's fine.
the colorful children's movie Trolls becomes the disconcerting Norwegian film Troll. No, sorry, that was Troll Hunter. It becomes the weird ass 80s horror movie Troll, which spawned an unrelated sequel that is considered one of the worst movies of all time. Yeah, that's all I got.
Me too. I think I'm done.
Do you ever think that our podcast might be slowly sunsetting?
I don't know. I mean, if
I
this
feel like
ever,
we're not in touch with the people like we used to be.
if we decide we're ever done with this, we've got to we at least have to get to episode 666. We have to do it.
You did promise your Dark Lord.
I mean, we can go past that.
mean,
That's fine. We can't.
Your home will be destroyed in a rain of fire if we don't. It is such it has been written. So I'm with you there.
Just we're just so close. We have to do it.
I just feel like we don't have our ear to the ground like we used to. I feel like we're not in touch with the people and what they want. If you're people, let us know what you want in the blog, themagicaltalkinghat.com. See how that goes. In the meantime, keep yourself busy. Go to aethertheater.com and look at all the crazy crap William has there. It's really, you in some small towns, they have like a tourist trap that's like a museum of something that you're like, I've never thought that there would be a museum of that. The novelty of that alone, I have to go check it out. And you're like, and afterwards you're like, yeah, it's fine. It costs like $5. It's like, what else we were gonna do? Was this or the local McDonald's? There's like nothing else going on. So it was kind of fun and it was different. And I mean, I'm gonna forget about it tomorrow, but I'm not sorry how I spent the day. That is what aethertheater.com is like. There's just a lot of stuff there that you're like, oh, I've never heard of anybody doing that. Why would you do that? And you're like, yeah, okay. What else is on?
Well,
Also, go to Oddwings. Go to smashwords.com and buy my book Oddwings.
Wings, not wing. Odd wings.
Yes, it's plural. A book that is so well beloved that a dear friend of mine can recently be quoted as saying, I'm about 25% through it, and it's not bad. I might even read the sequel.
I mean, that's a Hollywood producer right there. You're saying, oh, wow, I 25% like this. Let's greenlight a sequel right now.
I mean, fuck off if that's not a pull quote on my second book. That is definitely going on the back cover of my second book.
Yeah, that's great. That's good stuff.
Loved that. So yeah, it's hugely popular, and you can too for only $3.
Won't you?
Won't you? Thank you. Um, and then otherwise we'll be back next week. We'll just do this again. So enjoy. Also, if you want to say lovely things about the much less glare now that William has painted the wall behind him. Seriously, it's I want to say it's like night and day, but that feels a little on the nose. But it's just like so much better. I can't even tell you.
Yeah, it's good color. We like it.
Normally, when I'm waiting for you to show up and I'm already on here because that's the kind of mental issues I have, I'm watching the TV and it's got a lot of glare and that's bad. But today I was watching something that had a yellow background and it actually was really good lighting. And I almost was like, could I pause this and use it as lighting? But I'm like, at a certain point, the stupid screensaver is going to kick in and that'll be it. So I didn't do it. But yellow apparently works good on me. Anyway, yeah. Go to blog magicaltalkinghat.com and tell us your thoughts on all of this because we clearly did not have very many. And also write in the email address, themagicaltalkinghat@gmail.com. Anything you want to write. I probably won't make as much fun of you as your talent. And even if I do, it may turn back around and it'll be good. I have no idea what the title of this episode is going to be called, but it's probably going to be one of those titles we came up with. So we'll have to see. And then listen again next week and see if we can even do better. Probably not.